Pickle, it's week 2 of the Texas high school football season, and there are 740-plus games scattered across the state of Texas. Let's preview all of them. So let's start. Who's Llano got this week?
Oh, no. Comanche, question mark?
Let's find out. I do know this.
They did beat Lytle 47-0 last week.
This is worth stopping down
because
for a bit.
If it is Comanche, I have a story real fast.
They are playing Comanche.
Okay, so my dad sent me a screenshot of the Comanche score last week, and it said that they beat state-ranked Poth 50-0. And he was like, oh my God, Llano might get blasted into the sun. And then we realized it was just the score app was wrong, and then it got fixed. But he was like, oh no.
So Llano and Comanche.
Yeah, that should be a good game.
Will it make my top 10 Texas high school football games of the week in week 2? Let's find out together. We count them down. Start with number 10. Richland and Colleyville Heritage. This is a very interesting ball game, the DFW Metroplex. I think a game that might be flying under the radar for a lot of people. Richland is off to a really nice start at 1-0, and remember last year Richland. It was a breakout year for the Royals. They were a team that I think kind of came out of nowhere for some people. It was a big game in Northeast Tarrant County. Colleyville Heritage rallied last week to beat Red Oak by a field goal, and they've got a big-time wide receiver in Braden Blewett. This is going to be a really interesting ball game. Remember that Richland has a Baylor committed running back in Michael Turner and a great quarterback in Drew Cates. This game is really interesting. One of those kind of like, if it's not, respectfully, it's not one of those brand name games, but it's one of those games that if you're into Texas high school football, this is a good old-fashioned Texas high school football game between two good teams in Northeast Tarrant County. That's my number 10 game of the week. Number 9, with some production value, Gunner and Anna.
Let's go.
This game going on tomorrow night. We're going to talk with the head coach of the Gunner Tigers, Jake Frisell, coming up here in a moment. This game's so weird. This game is so bizarre. It's a matchup of defending state champs, right? Gunner won 3A Division II. Anna won 4A Division I. Anna moved up to 5A Division II this past realignment. The difference in enrollment between these two teams is
4.11 to be exact.
There are more than 4 students in Anna High School for every one Gunner student.
I think it's 1409 and 363.
It is a massive disparity. I was looking this up. This is the 19th time in the last 5 seasons that you have a 5A versus a 3A.
And there was actually a pretty good ratio of 3A teams not doing too bad.
No, I think 3A teams, because what ends up happening when you have 5A versus 3A, what it ends up being is like pretty poor 5A teams trying to get a win by going and playing a team that they're a lot bigger than. But then they end up playing good 3A teams.
Yep.
These are 2 great teams. I'm really interested to see how the depth difference plays out. I'm really interested to see how Gunner handles Zyandre Williams, the outstanding quarterback for Anna. I made the point to a friend, this might be the best quarterback Gunner's seen in quite a while. This is a fascinating ball game going down there at Anna on Friday night. I'm really interested in this. I don't know. Here's what's interesting about this game. I don't know if there's a ton you can glean from it from a result, but I'm absolutely fascinated just to see it because of how just the differences between these two.
Oh, I was going to say, I'll be interested to see Gunner's defense go up against Zyandre Williams. Like, that's going to be the fun part for me.
Really interesting. Number 8. Holiday and Munster. Staying in North Texas here, as you have an absolutely fabulous ball game between 2 teams up there in the Northeast, in North Texas, that I think have an opportunity to really steal the show this week. This game, I think, is going to be fabulous. When you take a look at what Munster's got cooking, Munster is a team that is a 2A Division II, so they're punching up a full classification. But this team was dominant last week, blowing away a private school team. They are really, really strong, especially defensively. What happens when they go up against Hunter Jones and this Holiday attack, which looked so good in their season opener against Breckenridge? This game is interesting, especially with Munster at home. They're pretty tough to beat. They're in Munster, but Holiday is the bigger team, and Holiday is playing with a lot of firepower right now. Holiday and Munster, a game I'm keeping an eye on. Number 7, Canadian and Bushland. Let's go up to the Panhandle for this one. expect points in this one. Two teams that are replacing quarterbacks. Dawson Jaco is gone for Bushland. Cameron Cavalier is gone for Canadian. They've replaced them with outstanding quarterbacks. Clay Kendall has taken over for Canadian at under center, while Bushland is turning towards their quarterback, whose name I had here in a moment. Oh my gosh, his name was Quade Ferris. Both of them look good in their season opener. Bushland, I thought, looked really good in their season opener last week against Borger, but this is a better team than Borger was. Canadian went to Elk City, Oklahoma, which is a team that's pretty big. I want to say it's comparable to like playing like a 5A team. And they came out with a win. This is a big test, I think, for the Canadian defense and where they are in their kind of reload. Fascinating ball game, Canadian and Bushland. Number 6. Salina and Waco La Vega.
This one rocks.
This game is really, really fun to watch, and two teams that I think have an opportunity to each make a very deep run. You know, La Vega last week I thought kind of flew under the radar with their win. Well, Salina, we'll talk about them first. They had a kind of a high-profile win over Belleville and kind of looked like what we thought they might look like. But last week, what I think underrated, what La Vega did to Kennedale. I mean, they kind of, talk about a physical ball game. They were able to hold down this rushing attack for the most part for Kennedale, and their offense really got cooking. Now they get an opportunity to play Salina, a team that's brimming with confidence right now, coming off that big win over Belleville. They really pulled away late. Fascinated by this ball game. Want to see how the La Vega defense stacks up against this high-powered Salina offense. What's interesting, though, is that they have already faced a high-octane running attack when they played Kennedale. Can they hold up against what might be an even better running attack in Salina? Fascinating ball game, Salina and Waco La Vega. My top 10 Texas High ball games of the week rolls on with number 5, Duncanville and South Oak Cliff. So from a rankings perspective, this is pretty good. It's number 2 Duncanville in 6A against number 2 South Oak Cliff in 5A, Division 2. A lot of the same things we talked about last week with Duncanville taking on South Oak Cliff taking on North Shore kind of hold true here. There's a huge enrollment disparity. But what I want to see is how the South Oak Cliff defense, which played 3 great quarters against North Shore, how they hold up against Duncanville. I want to see if South Oak Cliff can find some answers offensively. And furthermore, I want to see what this kind of new look Duncanville team looks like. This is Duncanville's season opener. They were idle in week 1. And so we will finally see what Duncanville is going to be all about. We know what they've got at the quarterback spot with Keelan Russell, the Alabama commit. We know what they've got out wide with Demontre Moore, am I being crazy? Yeah. They are an outstanding playmaking team. How do they replace the defensive line is a question for them. I want to see what that looks like against South Oak Cliff. Again, for South Oak Cliff, I want to see how they measure up. I don't think that there's a ton of teams out there that can measure up. 5A Division 2 teams that can stack up against Duncanville. I don't expect South Oak Cliff to win this game, but I want to see them be competitive. And we will have an early 1-to-1 comparison of Duncanville versus North Shore, which feels like it could be another title game.
Absolutely. No, it does. It was funny last week. Some of my friends were like, oh my God, did you see Sock get blown out? And I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes for a second here. Like, let's consider all the facets of this. So yeah, I'm very interested to see this one.
Fascinating ball game, Duncanville and South Oak Cliff. Number 4. Civil of Steel and San Antonio Reagan. Let's go to the San Antonio area where this is a
banger.
real banger, and I am absolutely fascinated with this one. Reagan, I think, really flew under the radar last week with what they did. I think people are not necessarily paying attention to how good they were last week. They were spectacular in their victory last week. Jack Bingham, their quarterback, was good, while the Air Force commit Cole Pryor ran for 137 yards and a score, and they dismantled San Antonio Brennan. That doesn't happen to Brennan.
No.
That was really impressive. Now they get an opportunity at what looks like the best team in San Antonio in Civil of Steel, and they looked it last week against Liberty Hill. That final score was 49-26, but there was some late window dressing from Liberty Hill. Civil of Steel was dominant in this ball game, and you look everywhere they've got Chad Warner, Jonathan Hatton, Jalen Cooper, Royal Capel. This team is really sound, and I'm interested to see what happens with this Reagan defense against Civil of Steel. I'm interested to see what happens with this Steel defense against what has been a very good balanced Reagan attack. A lot to learn in this one, Steel and Reagan. Number 3, Gilmer and Chapel Hill. Let's go east.
Beast, Texas. 2
teams that played the state championship last year, but only one of them brought home the hardware with Gilmer and Chapel Hill. So Chapel Hill, week 1, no notes. Absolutely fantastic. Went to Jasper and really bodied Jasper in a big way. And it was the Ricky Stewart and Demetrius Brisbane show. They were absolutely terrific in this one. They ran wild in a big-time win. Everything was great. Gilmer.
This was a wait. Were they playing Longview? No, it was Longview Pine Tree.
Longview Pine Tree. Now, I think Longview Pine Tree is going to be better. I want to be clear. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think they're a playoff team. But if you're the 4A Division II state champ and you're the number 2 team in the state entering the rankings or entering the season, that wasn't what we wanted to see. They got up 12-0 and they let it slip, and they ended up losing to Longview Pine Tree. They didn't get worse, right? They've got a McCown at quarterback.
Yes.
Which one is it? Owen?
Josh.
Josh. Thank you.
Owen is at UTSA right now.
Thank you. The McCown quarterback tree is incredible. They've still got Caden Tinson. They still got Brendan Webb. I actually was impressed by their defense last week, which is not something I've said a whole lot, very famously. But they've got to figure it out offensively going up against Chapel Hill. Can Gilmer shake that off? Can Chapel Hill keep their foot on the gas and prove that this year is different? Remember last year, Chapel Hill really ran it up on Gilmer. Not ran it up as far
71 to 53.
Yeah, not as far as like margin, but like they put a ton of points on the board. How far does the Gilmer defense come? A lot to learn from this one out east, Gilmer and Chapel Hill.
I'm also interested to see if the start is not as hot as Alan Metzel is hoping for. What is that leash on potentially putting your quarterback? State championship winning quarterback back at the helm? That'll be the most interesting thing for me, because there's McGowan he's not a bad quarterback, but is it just not working? I'll be very interested to see that.
Number 2, Katy and Atascocita box office in the Houston area.
Tasty.
This game's going to be fantastic, and this is fascinating for a lot of reasons. There's a chance that this is the first of 2 meetings if the playoffs break right. Katy got in a dogfight with Dickinson last week, but pulled out a win. It's a great game on Texan Live. Atascocita rolled past Lamar, looked the part, looked great. Which is funny because they're working with the new quarterback in Carday Mack, who is very good, taking over for Zion Brown. The early returns very positive, both throwing and running the ball. Katy, you know what they're going to do. They're gonna run the ball with Tremaine Hill. They're going to run behind that big offensive line, and then Gunnar Nelson's going to pull it back for play action and hit over the top. What I want to see in this one is the Katy defense against the Atascocita offense. Because Katy got lit up last week by Dickinson.
They almost lost that game.
Yeah, they almost lost that game. A fabulous ball game at Legacy Stadium Friday night, which you can watch live on Dave Campbell's Texan Live. And finally, the number 1 game in the state, North Crowley and DeSoto.
Prospect Haven. Yeah,
if you're a Prospect Hound, this game's for you. For North Crowley, last week against Lancaster, they got into a bit of a dogfight, but they pulled it out, and you saw Chris Jemerson and Cornelius Warren really hit the Jets offensively and come up with plays, and I thought their defense actually played pretty well in that game overall. This is our first real look at DeSoto because they played a team from Georgia that respectfully, and I'm not saying this to rag on this team, they just didn't belong on the field with DeSoto.
No, not at all.
I mean, 70 to nothing tells you what you need to know. It was our first look at the new quarterback, Keldon Ryan. We know the kind of weaponry he's got around them. What does this DeSoto team look like? We will find out way more in this game than we did last week.
North Crowley also had a lot of self-inflicted wounds against Lancaster. So, like, if they shore those up, how much of a push forward does that give them?
And this would also be, for North Crowley, if you want to talk about your arrival in the upper crust.
Absolutely.
Here's an opportunity to do that.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. This would be the biggest win for North Crowley since they won the title in 2003. If they can go to DeSoto and get a win. It is a huge ball game. It is the number 1 game in the state according to my list. And there it is. Tepper's top 10 Texas high school ball games of the week. Of course, you can watch many of those games live
on Dave Campbell's Texan Live.
because that's what all the cool kids are going.
Yeah, they are.
TexasFootball.com/subscribe.